we live on the internet? I think we are. Okay, welcome everyone to another edition of Subvisual Live Talks. As you can see, I'm in a different place. Hopefully that won't affect the quality of the streaming. As you know, if you have any questions, comments, whatever, you can use the hashtag Subvisual Talks, sorry. And either Subvisual Talks or Subvisual Live Talks should work. Tweet us there. I'll be sure to respond after the interview. And without further ado, let's get into our guest today. Hi, Todd.
Hey, how are you?
All good. So,
Excellent.
Todd, for people that might not know you or not be too familiar
Sure.
with your work here, do you want to give a quick intro? We'll go into more detail further along, but a quick intro of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. My name is Todd Lombardo. I live in the Boston area, Massachusetts, in the United States. I'm currently leading the product team at Machine Metrics, industrial IoT startup here in the Boston area. I've been in between product and design probably for the last 20 years. A variety of different roles. I kind of fell into product, and we can get into that in more detail later of how I got into it. But yeah, it's pretty much where all three things come together for me, which is a lot of fun.
Cool. So my first question is always the same for people that have been following is how did you get into tech? What was your first driver to get into tech?
Yeah, I guess it's like, what kind of tech are you talking about? Like software technology? Because when I was in when I graduated, so my undergrad is in biology and chemistry, and I started. So I was in a different kind of technology, not necessarily
Okay.
software, but I fell into it in that the company I was working for made blood glucose monitors. So, you click your finger, prick your finger, and we were trying to optimize that and get less and less amount of blood and still with the same amount of accuracy, really to help. If you know anybody who has diabetes who has to prick their fingers or their arm or legs, whatever, it does get exhausting over time. So we were trying to find a way to minimize that. And the products we were working on, well, I was working mostly on the sort of biochemical side of like the chemical reaction that took place between the blood and the enzyme to actually measure how much glucose in the blood. I was part of a team that was working on some hardware in terms of the device itself, some software and some firmware. So I really got introduced into software products development at that time. I was mostly like a scientist in an engineering group. That really got me turned on to technology overall. Then from there, it was mostly in the biotech medical device world for quite a while in a mix of engineering and product roles. But because I was dealing with a hardware, software, firmware, and oftentimes both chemistry and biological components, it was a really complex system. And software was being just one part of the whole thing. And I found it fascinating. The whole thing was fascinating to me because I was always fascinated by biology. It's one of the reasons why I have an undergrad in it. But as I got more and more in seeing how this all works together, I was drawn a little bit towards software. And it was really intriguing to see there, having been a product manager of something like a chemistry and biology reagent, the parallels with software are unbelievable in terms of you can do rapid iterations. You can get stuff into customers' hands really fast because it's a matter of like, all right, let's put the right ingredients together, put the right protocol together, and have a customer try it. We try it internally, we try it externally, see if it works. But then obviously to go from that to maybe a full production, there may be some other other steps in between. Just like if you do a quick prototype of a feature, it might get you one result in one state, but then if you actually want to make sure you deploy it full time in production so that every customer can use it at scale, it's a different story. So the parallels were really helpful to me as I slowly moved away from biotech and into just all software, all tech. And now I'm in this mix of IoT, where you do have this hardware and sensors and other aspects that's not just the software itself. Obviously, software is a big part of it, but so that's kind of how I evolved my way into there. It wasn't like I was an undergrad and said, "Gee, I want to be working in a software tech company." It was really kind of a number of different opportunities and doors that opened along the way that slowly got me to here.
So there wasn't like a point where you decided, okay, like the not really, I was gonna say the web, but you do a lot of technology that's not only on the web, right? So you do other sort of software all around. But you've always have you always considered yourself more of a product person in that situation, or
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I started a graduate degree in chemistry and then quickly moved into biomedical engineering, which was sense was good because coming from the science side, it's not like I had an undergraduate degree in engineering. So I had to quickly get up to speed on some basic engineering. And the thing about biomedical engineering is you don't have to be an expert in mechanical, electrical, chemical engineering. You do have to understand the basics because you're really looking at an entire system. How does the whole system work together? So you need to understand enough, but really that mindset. So a lot of biomedical engineers, I think, would make great product managers because you have to think in systems. You've got to look at the whole thing, and it's not just being a specialist in electrical, mechanical, or software engineering at all. It's really the mix of all the above. Um, so that for me is what sort of enticed me to get into just technology. And when I was a kid, my dad was an electrical engineer. He's retired now, but he had me, writing basic code when I was like 8 or 9 years old on computers, and it was fun to like ace high school programming classes, way back then because it was pretty easy for me, having had written a bunch of code when I was 8 or 9 years old. But I never said, "Oh, I want to write code for my career." I was a little bit like, I want to do something a little bit different than my dad. So that's why I didn't dive into specifically to go to study computer science or anything.
but at some point you also then starting to give back to the community, we could say that way. So you obviously you give a lot of talks, you write some books that we will get into in a second. You also you're one of the founders of Product Camp with
Yeah, that's right. I
so
founded Product Camp Boston. Wow, over 10 years ago now. It was 2007 or maybe 2008. 2008. Um, I had been working as a product manager in a biotech company here in the Boston area. And while we were a small startup that had just gotten acquired by a larger organization that had a very mature, almost old school kind of product manager approach, it was very much like the product managers there were very